Hello and welcome to my channel. This is going to be about Openwebrx Plus and how to install it on an Ubuntu virtual machine on Windows 10. Some people have been asking me about what receiver software I'm using when they've seen some of the waterfall displays and spectral displays. And one of my favorites is Openwebrx Plus, which is a extended version of the original Openwebrx, and I like it. It has a lot of built-in decoders for digital modes and all kinds of nice functions like channel scanning, and you'll see later what it can do. And I would normally install it on an Ubuntu machine direct, which I did earlier today to make sure I still knew how to do it. And I also have it running on a Raspberry Pi. There's a ready-made image just to flash onto an SD card for the Raspberry Pi. Then you can leave it in your network, like I have the Pi hole in my network running on a Raspberry Pi and a couple of Openwebrx Plus servers with SDR dongles on them. And they're available in the network. You can just see them in a web browser. Very nice to use. But I wanted to have one on the laptop I carry around with me that I can use for going portable. And instead of just using SDR hash or SDR sharp or any of those softwares, SDR console, which also work very nicely, I wanted the features of Openwebrx Plus. And the only way to do that is to have it running on a laptop, and I want it on a Windows laptop because I want to use some Windows software that doesn't run under Linux. There's no Linux version. So I decided to bite the bullet and install a Linux virtual machine on my Windows laptop. Before I talk about that, spoiler for the next video, my most popular video in the last few days has been the Paradar Yagi antenna. I got a 12 dBi one. And I was going to take it down today because it's outside working, but I noticed there were so many people using it to relay signals across Brighton and talking about how useful it was having it up here. I thought I'd better not switch it off and unplug it so I could do any tests with it. And then I remembered I've ordered another directional antenna, so it'll be a good test to compare the two during the week when there are not so many users using it, and also when the other antennas arrive. Just to give you a spoiler, I've ordered one of these, a helium, made for helium antenna for that crypto mining network. I don't know if it's still going on, I haven't checked, at 868 megahertz on eBay. The price is quite a lot of money, but it dropped down from rather more than that from the original price. So I ordered one of those 10 dBi flat panels and see how it compares to the Yagi. So that'll be what I'll be doing maybe on Monday or Tuesday. But until then, I'm playing with Linux and virtual machines. So I've made some notes to remember what I want to do. And let me just shrink myself down so that you can see what's on my screen. Hopefully the sound is working and it's recording. There's a lot of buttons to press here. Make sure I got the right ones. So there we are. The antenna that I've ordered is here. That's on eBay from what are they called? McGill Microwave. They're the manufacturers, or certainly the sellers. I think it might be a US antenna, but I wanted to get one because it's 1 foot square and thin, which means that I can slip it into a rucksack to go portable when I go up to a hilltop when the weather gets warmer, to try out some of this Meshtastic using directional antennas from hilltops, and that's easy to transport. Anyway, back to the topic of this video, which is Openwebrx Plus. You may have already seen Openwebrx working on the Kiwi SDR system. This is the Kiwi SDR online receiver system. There are hundreds of these, 670 around the world. Works very nicely, and it actually covers 0 to 30 megahertz in a single span, the receiver, which is quite an amazing feat, which is nice if you need it. But I wanted to use Openwebrx Plus, which is a different fork of Openwebrx. And here I've made a few notes so I know what I'm doing. And the Openwebrx Plus, should I give you a flash preview? There's one of them. Can look like that. But anyway, you'll see that at the end if this works. You need to install an Ubuntu virtual machine, Ubuntu 22.04. That's the latest version, 0.4, came out a few days ago. And it needs to be installed in a virtual machine if we're going to do this on Windows. So I use VirtualBox that Seems to work. It's a bit fiddly sometimes, and I've discovered one or two strange things. I wouldn't say they were bugs, but I spent all day making this work, so it's not as easy as it looks. But now I've got it working, then I'm ready to show you, I think. I put it on a Lenovo T480 laptop, which is, for me, relatively modern and powerful because you need a fair amount of RAM and CPU power to run VirtualBox open machines. VirtualBox virtual machines, Type 2 hypervisor. I've also done this on Proxmox hypervisors, which is a bare metal hypervisor for running virtual machines, and that's working very well on my network as well. But on this laptop, then we have VirtualBox running under Windows, and I'm not going to go through how to install this because there are plenty of other videos you can watch from people who explain very well how to install VirtualBox, and I wanted the Windows host. Oops, don't want to download it again. That's a straight download button. So you download it and install it, which is fairly straightforward. And then you need to have an Ubuntu ISO file. So you can get that from ubuntu.com. And that's the latest version. Download the ISO. I think it's probably 600. Oh no, it's more. It's some gigabytes. I don't remember how big it is. I didn't even look because with high internet speeds, you don't worry about size anymore. So downloaded the Ubuntu ISO, and that's ready to be installed as a virtual machine under this VirtualBox. And to start VirtualBox, you need to, for later on, run it as administrator. If you don't, then the USB pass-through doesn't work from the dongle, which I'll show you now. The USB. This is actually one from the company called Nuelec. It's quite old. I bought this during the pandemic lockdown period, so that's at least 3 years old probably, but still works very well. It gets a bit warm sometimes. That was the problem with these. But it's a cheap SDR dongle that seems to work extremely well for VHF. It doesn't work at HF below 24 megahertz, so Nuelec. So to pass that through the USB port through Windows into the virtual machine Ubuntu, you need to have things set up right, which means this VirtualBox program hypervisor you have to run as, click More, run as administrator, and then there's a Windows warning, otherwise the pass-through doesn't work. So there is the control panel for the hypervisor called VirtualBox, and I'm not going to show you how to install a virtual machine on here either. Basically you just click I want a new one and go through the Ubuntu install. You can also do an unattended install, which I didn't try because I didn't know what it was going to. I wanted a minimal install without all of the Office suite software and stuff, which I never use. So I did it manually, quickly, just choosing the basic options. So then there's a Ubuntu, and what I do is I set it up a little bit so it runs how I want it, and then I make a snapshot of it and save it as a fresh minimally configured Ubuntu. And the reason for doing this is when things go wrong, I don't want to reinstall it. So what I do is I make a clone of the clean install, which would be this one, for example. This one works. Play around with it, get it working, and then of course take a snapshot of it so I can roll it back if I need to. But if it goes completely wrong, this is the beauty of virtual machines. You can just delete the virtual machine, it's gone forever, and then clone a fresh one from the fresh install. So that's why there are 3 of them here. This one, the third one, has not yet had Openwebrx installed on it, so I'm going to run through that installation now so you can see how it's done. It's a little bit tricky sometimes. There are a few things to watch out for. So let's start that up. Before I do that, let me just look at the properties and settings. This is for that virtual machine. It's not running yet. Under Advanced, I have clicked I want to share the clipboard with Windows, but I can't make it work yet, and I've given up. It's not so important, but I wanted to copy paste from Windows and I couldn't do it. Maybe somebody can make a comment in the comments as to how to make this work, because I couldn't get it working quickly. So this virtual machine has got 6,000 megabytes of RAM, which is just under half of the total that's available on this machine. The rest is for Windows. And I actually set it up with I think 4 CPUs, and a 25 gigabyte virtual hard disk on the SSD, and it's all managed nicely by this hypervisor program. What else do we need to know? Network. Yeah, when you start off with the sort of factory basic settings, it's attached to a NAT, network address translation. So what that does is it makes a virtual NAT and then puts the virtual machine behind that. So it's got a different address range and it can't be seen from the network that the Windows host is in. I actually want it to be on the same network so I can use the Windows host web browser to access the server for Openwebrx. So what we have to do is change that to bridged adapter. So it bridges just in this case, it's coming from a Wi-Fi connection that I'm using, wireless LAN, to bridge that into the virtual machine so that servers running in the virtual machine will be in the same address space as just everything else that's on this particular wireless LAN in my building here. What else do I want to do? USB will pass through later. Let me just see what we're going to do. So I've changed that to bridged. Okay. So let's start this virtual machine while I'm talking, because it takes a few seconds to start. So it will start now, and powering up the virtual machine. Let me go back to the list of things that need to be done. So we've got VirtualBox installed and running as administrator. I've changed the network to bridged and not NAT, so it's in the same address space as the host machine. And oh yeah, before running it, which I've already done, you need to install their extension pack for the USB pass-through. It doesn't warn you, it lets you set up a USB pass-through, but it doesn't work. And when you try and find out why, then you discover you need to install the extension pack with the same version number as the VirtualBox hypervisor. That's important. The latest version is 7.0.14, which I installed, and I couldn't make it work. And I gave up. And I went back to 7.0.12 because I know that worked when I did it last time, and then it worked again. So not sure what that's about. Anyway, so you need the extension pack. And let's have a look at that virtual machine. Let's see if it's managed to get started yet. Yes, it has. I can log in with my password. There it is. And what am I going to do? I'm going to check the IP address is in the same address space as the host. Let's do that straight away, using IP space A. And yeah, that's my address space in my local area network here. Which means that when this Openwebrx server is running on this machine, I can access it from any web browser on any other machine in the same network, so other laptops, even a mobile phone. So that's going to be a bit of fun. Let's see what USB devices it has. LS USB in this virtual machine, and there's nothing much, just some hubs, which is what we'd expect. Even though the dongle is plugged into the USB port of the laptop Windows host, it has not yet been passed through to this virtual machine. That's where the fun starts. So first of all, I'm going to shut it down using the command shutdown. Now, remember when this used to send messages to all the users, this machine's going down, save your work on terminals. Anyway, so that's shut down. And what do I want to do? Yes, I want to do the USB pass-through. And how do we do that? We have to go into the hypervisor and change the settings to pass through the port. So let's try that. The hypervisor is still running. Yes, it is. This is the machine I'm doing it on. So I go in here and I go to settings, and then I go to USB, and I find USB 3 works better with the data throughput. Otherwise you can get little gaps sometimes in the signal that you're listening to, or the spectrum display, the waterfall. And then you just add the port that you want. And I press the green cross button. Now you would think that you would just need, well, let's do it, to add, here it is, that's the USB RTL dongle plugged in. You click on that, there it is, it's going to be enabled. And I found it didn't work for me. It took me a long time to fiddle around and realize that I have to install another USB device as well, which is this Realtek device, I think. And I found if I put that in there as well, then it works, but only when it's above the RTL dongle. So we can move that up, I think. Move selected USB for, yeah, so you move it up. This is a trick. I don't think it's a bug. I don't know what I'm doing, but it makes it work, or it did last time. So you say, I want those two, and it's USB 3. Okay. So we say OK to that. And now when we start the virtual machine, hopefully that RTL-SDR dongle will have been passed through and we'll be able to see it. So I'll have a look in a minute. Just using this lsusb command again, which lists the USB devices that the Ubuntu machine can see, virtual machine. So let's go and have a look at it. Where is it? Here, still starting. Watch out for data leaks. So I'm going to log in and I'm going to type lsusb at the command line and see if we can see the USB device. So here we are, password. And it's not 1234, unfortunately. Okay. Let's see if that's worked. Keep the fingers crossed because I've taken more than half a day to get this to work. So, nice thing about Linux is it remembers the commands on the command line. Oh, look at that, lsusb. And you can now see there's the Realtek RTL-2838 DVB-T. That's the receiver dongle. The other USB device I had to pass through is the card reader, which is maybe some kind of a hardware problem in this Lenovo design. So the card reader for reading smart cards on the laptop, you pass that through and then you can see the dongle for the SDR, otherwise it just wouldn't work. Strange but true. So that worked. Well, I'm impressed. So what do we do next? We have to become the root user. If you're not the root, this will fail. So let's become the root user using sudo su and then the password. Oops. Okay, and now we are a root, which gives us the privileges to install this software. So actually we have to install the keys first. So this is for the repository. Is this going to work? No, this is not going to work because copy paste. Well, maybe let's try it. Control C and try and paste it into here. Let's use the right click paste. No, you see there's nothing to paste even though the share clipboard was enabled. So that is not going to work. And hopefully this web browser has Google Keep password. Yes, it has. Good. So then I can do it on the Ubuntu virtual machine. So that's what I'm using now. So there we are. wget that. Control C. And Alt Tab works nicely in virtual machines as well. Control Shift V for paste. wget command not found. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because I didn't get that error early today when I tried this. What is going on here? Now I'm going to show off my ignorance of Linux. Why did that not work? That's very odd. Let me have another look at this. Maybe I didn't copy paste it nicely. This worked when I tried it earlier. Copy. Okay, I got some silly characters in there with the way I pasted it. That was my fault. So that's got that key for the repository 3K. Okay, now it's working. Sorry about that. This is a live video and I'm not going to edit it because I'm lazy. So what else are we going to do? We're going to echo that then into that file. For the keys for the repository, Control Shift V. Yeah, that's gone in. Good. And then we're going to do an apt update. Just see if it works really. Yeah, and you see that this key's been added into the repositories list. This Luavik is the username on GitHub of the person that's modified the Openwebrx to become Openwebrx Plus. So that worked. Now we have to get the other key from the original Openwebrx repository. See, Control Shift V. Okay, got that. And then we have to add that into this file like this. All of it. Control C, Alt Tab, Control Shift V, I think. So that's written it into there. Let's do another apt update, see if that appears. Yeah, looks like it has. So now we've got the Openwebrx repository. It's written by a guy in Germany, and then this Luavik extra to make it into the Plus version. So, oh, we can install it. Let's try. So it's apt install. We are root, aren't we? Yeah. Openwebrx. Oh, it's working. Just press enter, and it's actually installing it. Looking good so far. Give it a password. This is for the administrator. So there's a password. And it's now installing the Openwebrx software. And it's being installed as a service. So it means that when this virtual machine starts, it's a desktop Ubuntu. It's not a server Ubuntu. So it has a desktop. You don't ever need to look at the desktop or log in. This service is always started up and it just runs. And then you can look at the Openwebrx receiver in various different ways to use it. So that's finished installing. And don't forget to reboot. If you don't reboot, things are not quite finished setting up. So I can now reboot. That's nice. So how do we reboot Ubuntu? We type R-E-B-O-O-T and press enter. I like that. And it reboots. So what will happen when it's rebooted? I did the pass-throughs. I set up the IP addresses. So it may even work. And VirtualBox is running as administrator. So the quick way to check is to check on the virtual machine itself using its web browser, looking at its own local host address to see if you can see that receiver. So it's you have to put in the local host address, which is this, and then :8073. That's the port number that Openwebrx Plus uses. So let's have a look. Let's log in. I'm making this look easier than it was. It's called a learning curve, and I think I just climbed up it today. So if I start the web browser and then look at that localhost address, let's see what happens. Open a new tab. So it's 127.0.0.1 :8073. Port number. Oh wow, look at that. It loaded. It's working. Oh, there's some noise. Let's turn the speaker off. Oh, I'm impressed. You press the button called chat, pops up this little window down here, and what this shows is the version number. 1.2.49 is the latest version of Openwebrx Plus that's out. This is the name of the person that did the modification. And there are some links here you can click for support and instructions and things, so let's make that go away. Actually, you can share this through the internet if you want. If you set up your router and firewalls and ports and things, you can actually share it with the world. I think there's a website where you can look at all these machines running, and now people can chat with you. So if someone wants to make a comment on your receiver, they can fill in that chat box and it appears in your receiver. So you can chat with people around the world. Not that I would want to use it for that. Turn that off. This status button shows you down here the various usage. Server CPU 72%. Yeah. Anyway, there are no frequencies set up yet apart from these, but this may be wrong. So let's go and look at how to set up Openwebrx Plus. There's nothing set up yet, so let's go into the settings. The username is admin, and the password is the one I typed in during the install, which is that. Oh, save, that works. So if you look at SDR devices and profiles, you can go through all these various settings. This has a decoder in it for FT8, and it'll do the PSK reporter spotting. If you put in your call sign, and then it can upload the spots on the map. RTL-SDR USB stick is running. They've pre-installed several different SDR hardwares. You can delete these if you want, or just leave them there. The one I've got plugged in is this one. It's actually running amazingly, and there's a couple of channels set up. What I want to do though, because Meshtastic is what I've been playing with for weeks, is I'm going to name this as 8682870. That's just the name, and we're going to look at that Meshtastic band. I don't want a manual gain setting. If you take that out, then it's set to automatic, the RTL-SDR dongle. is allowed to set the gain by itself. You have to check the units here, megahertz and so on. If you don't, when you create a new profile, I'll show you, they're set to hertz and seconds, which is not very useful because when you type numbers in, you get it wrong. So you have to change it to megahertz before you type in the numbers, otherwise they get converted and it goes wrong. So let's have a look. I was playing with this one, wasn't I? No, was I playing with that one? No, it hasn't saved it. Look at that. Interesting. So let's put it in again. 8682870. No manual gain. So the center frequency in megahertz is going to be 869. The sample rate 2.4 megasamples per second. These dongles only have 2 megahertz bandwidth, so that's a safe sampling rate. You can't get the 0 to 30 megahertz or that sort of spectrum with these dongles. So 2.4 megasamples per second. The initial frequency, that's what it's going to start off with. Let's start in the middle of the band as well, 869. That's where the receiver's tuned to. Modulation, let's listen to AM because it's going to be bursts and you can hear them better. Tuning step 1 kilohertz is fine, nothing else, so apply and save. So if I go back to here, oh, it's already selected. So out of those different bands, there were 2. This one now is this one. It's very dark green. So you click on here and it automatically adjusts the scaling so that you get a blue background. And already you can see signals. I've got an antenna plugged into that dongle, which is this one, this little dipole on a tripod. It came with another dongle, and it's picking up signals. So there's the thing. Somebody wrote a comment in German on one of my videos that said it sounds like a fart, and I think he's actually right. Can we listen to that if I click on it? Of course, it stopped when I want it. Let's listen to this one instead. This sounds good in USB. Reminds me of something. So it's a local signal here, 868.058 or so, and the Meshtastic frequency's up here. And of course, none of my Meshtastic nodes are doing anything. This is the farting machine. There it goes. So let me query a Meshtastic node if I can. I think my Bluetooth is out of range because I'm in a different room to the one I usually use. And we might see some Meshtastic signals. Let's try on this. If I can do something. No, they're all disconnected. Look at that. No, this one's connected now. They work very well. I was never a fan of Bluetooth, but these days it seems to work. So I'm going to do a trace route to another node, and oh, there you are. Those big red things are the LoRa packets being sent. So this receiver's working. Let's turn the audio off. So that receiver's working, and we're looking at it in the web browser on the Ubuntu virtual machine, which we don't have to do. So let me stop it by pressing F5. Whoops, F5. Just turn down the brightness on my laptop. There we are. So actually, I can even be daring and close this web browser. So all we've got is the service running through the Openwebrx Plus. Let me check the IP address again, see what it is. 0.8.132. Interesting. So if we go and look at that IP address on the host, the Windows host, we might see something. Just remember 0.132. So I think I've already guessed that address and put it in my web browser. Let's have a look. No. So 8.132, it's a strange address. Normally they go up in sequence and this one's different. Anyway. Oh, look at that. So this is now the Windows machine, the host machine, the laptop running Windows, its web browser, Microsoft Edge, which is looking at this IP address in the network, which actually comes back to the Ubuntu virtual machine IP address that's actually hosted on this Windows laptop, but it doesn't know it. So there it is, working on the Windows laptop. So now, if I go portable, I can just have my Windows laptop with that dongle plugged in, and I can use all the functions of Openwebrx Plus. Otherwise, I'd have to bring a Raspberry Pi or an Ubuntu Linux server with me and some kind of networking equipment like a switch and a DHCP server so they can connect to each other. Complete jungle of equipment. And now it's all self-contained in a virtual fashion in one machine. I hope this video is not going too long. I think I'm talking a lot. Anyway, still working, that's the important thing. Yeah, so that is how to set up Openwebrx Plus, and also how to program in some frequencies you saw quickly in 2 megahertz chunks. I've got some others that I prepared earlier. I think that comes from a TV program in the UK. Here's one I prepared earlier. Not that one. Oh, this one. And I've got a few more frequency bands programmed into it. And this is why I like Openwebrx Plus, because when you look at a certain frequency band, if there's something interesting there, then these yellow buttons appear. And these are not just frequency markers. If you click on them, then it actually opens up the decoder. So this is ARINC for Europe, and these little packets of data that you see are coming from aircraft that are actually flying around within range of this antenna, and they're sending data packets from the aircraft telling you about its status, which I think is very clever, and decoding it here. And if I click on one of these, I don't know who it's going to be, just click on it, they're moving fast, it opens up a page on FlightAware about, that's what I just clicked on. So it's a flight from London, United Kingdom, Heathrow to Munich, Germany, just like that. So you can also see on the map, oh, it hasn't got the track. Normally there's a track to show where it's been. This one doesn't have it at the moment. So this is a really neat built-in decoder. And what other decoders do I have? Ah, yeah, this one. This is the band 433 to 435 in the 77s band, but the ISM section. And this ISM button appears as part of the software that's been stored in there. When you click on it, this window opens up with a decoder. And what this is, if you look, it's got Toyota, tire pressure, temperatures. These are the tire pressure monitors in the cars in the street outside, parked around me, which I think is a big giveaway. Look at this data that's being collected. These are all the cars parked, and you can tell all kinds of things, like the temperature is 7 degrees C. That one is 15. That's very suspicious. And sometimes you see the temperature is 25 or 30, which means the car's just been running and the tires have warmed up and it's just stopped. So it's kind of a forensic device. Anyway, so you can see that. There are plenty of other things you can click on too. So I listen to Airband a bit with this. You can hear a lot and you can decode a lot. If you want to know what decoders are in Openwebrx Plus at the moment, then there's all of these. And you can see there's RTT, FT8, and all of those digital modes. Whisper, packet is on 2 meters, for example. You can just look at that. There's a packet button. SSTV, CW. It seems to do a lot, and every update adds a new functionality. So that's why I like to use Openwebrx Plus. Anyway, I think that's enough from me. Let's take that away because we're giving away information that is publicly available, so it's not secret. You have to remember to click this button to make the waterfall a slightly nicer contrast. Thanks for listening. Hope it helps you to install Openwebrx Plus and use it. And please make comments and ask questions below, and maybe you can answer some of the questions that I have, and we can all learn from each other. So thank you, and see you in the next video, which is probably the directional antennas for Meshtastic. Now I'm going to stop the video.